August. I did a lot of work, little vacation, and now we're all glad and eager to be back to get the people's work done. But we will only do it if people be quiet. Okay, I want to thank Senators Durbin and Murray and Stabenow for being here. Now, over the past few months, the Senate appropriations process has been a shining example of how things should get done in Washington. These are times when people are divided. This is a closely divided chamber. But nevertheless, we can summarize the Senate's work in funding the government in one word: bipartisan. Bipartisan. Thanks to the phenomenal work of Appropriations Chair Patty Murray, who you'll hear from in a minute, and Vice Chair Susan Collins, and numerous colleagues on both sides, all 12 appropriation bills have been reported out of the committee with bipartisan support, the majority with unanimous support. That is incredible at a time when the country is so divided. And it's a beacon, and it's a great example, and a great example to the House of Representatives. This month, one of the Senate's top priorities will be to keep the government open beyond the September 30th deadline. Both parties, in both chambers, will have to work together if we are to avoid a shutdown. So when the House returns next week, I implore, I beg my House Republican colleagues to follow the Senate's lead, to recognize that time is short, and the only way to avoid a shutdown is through bipartisanship in both the House and the Senate. House Republicans have their first chance to show their commitment to bipartisanship when they return next week. The last thing Americans need right now is a pointless government shutdown. A shutdown will hurt just about every American, and yet there are some on the hard right in the House who say they actually want a shutdown. It's hard to believe that they would be so callous about people's wants and needs and helps and fears. Our economy has come a long way since the darkest days of COVID. Inflation slowing down. Job growth remains strong. The investments we've made through the infrastructure law, the CHIPS and Science Act, the Inflation Reduction Act are paying off with new projects, new jobs, and prices going down in so many areas, like drugs. We can't squander that all now. A shutdown is unnecessary and would harm many American families and businesses, just about everybody. But if both sides work in good faith, embrace bipartisanship as we've done in the Senate, avoid all-or-nothing tactics, my way or the highway tactics, which they tried to do on the debt ceiling, then there'll be no shutdown, and that'll be good news for the American people. Now, for the work ahead of us. Next week, we will take up 3 bills to start the minibus: Transportation HUD, Milcon, and Agriculture. I will file cloture tomorrow on the motion to proceed on this minibus, and we will vote on the motion to proceed Monday evening. We expect a strong bipartisan vote, and then we will proceed to the appropriations bills using what we said we would do, regular order, allowing amendments and discussing the bills as the Senate should work. So that is where we're headed. We're moving in a great path in the Senate. We hope the House comes to its senses and follows our example and passes bipartisan legislation, and then we will be able to avoid a government shutdown. Senator Murray.
Well, like all of my colleagues, I've been back home with my constituents, talking with them about their concerns and priorities, and let me tell you, they do not want to spend the next month wondering if Congress is going to fulfill its most basic obligation and fund the government. Here in the Senate, we have proven there is exactly zero reason for chaos or for shutdown. I'm working with Vice Chair Collins. The Senate Appropriations Committee has shown the American people that Congress can actually do its job, that we can work in a timely, bipartisan way to solve problems and make life better for the communities that we represent. We heard from members on both sides of the aisle They want to return to regular order, and we have been working very hard to make sure an open, bipartisan process is going on to make that happen. We held markups with input from members on both sides and televised them for the first time ever, so everyone could see what was in them and what was going on. The result was real progress. For the first time in 5 years, we passed all 12 appropriations bills out of committee and did it with overwhelming bipartisan support. 9 of the 12 committee bills were unanimous or had just a single no vote. We spent a lot of time and a lot of late nights and early mornings negotiating serious bills which can actually be signed into law and which actually follow the bipartisan debt limit deal President Biden and Speaker McCarthy struck earlier this year. We have provided a clear bipartisan roadmap to fund the government under extremely difficult constraints, proving Congress can work together and through its differences. The next step, as you just heard, is to bring these bills to the floor, and we will start next week with the Milcon VA, Ag FDA, and the THUD bill. And we hope, again, to move to them as early as Monday evening. That's very good progress, but I think we all understand that a CR is going to be necessary to make sure we have time to complete this whole process. And that supplemental funding, like President Biden has requested, is absolutely necessary to support our Ukrainian allies, provide relief for the truly heartbreaking disasters we have seen around the country, and stop the flow of fentanyl and more. And let me be clear, we can and should meet the President's full supplemental funding request. There are too many urgent priorities that we cannot afford to shortchange, everything from delivering the disaster relief communities desperately need to recover, to paying our wildland firefighters, and continuing to have our Ukrainian allies back. On that note, I have to say, I hope we can all come together, Democrats and Republicans as well, to address the child care crisis, as critical dollars for that are expected to expire at the end of this month. I'm ready to work with our Republican colleagues in every way possible to make sure that our child care centers remain open and our kids don't lose those slots, and parents, especially our moms, can stay at work. Now, as many of you know, I am no stranger to tough negotiations or fiscal brinkmanship, but I think it does bear repeating the Senate has shown there is a genuine bipartisan path to do our jobs and fund the government. The Senate Appropriations Committee, with plenty of members on opposite ends of the political spectrum, strongly progressive Democrats and deeply conservative Republicans, wrote 12 bills to make our country safer, our economy more competitive, and do good for the people that we all represent back home. We are full steam ahead here in the Senate, and as we move forward, I hope that my colleagues in both chambers remember the power of the purse rests with Congress. We have to take that responsibility seriously. Thank you.
Senator Durbin.
What you've just heard from Senator Murray is nothing short of remarkable. I've been on the Senate Appropriations Committee for 25 years. I had just about given up hope that we could return to regular order. But the two new leaders on the committee, especially Senator Patty Murray, along with Senator Collins, are setting an example for Congress and for the nation that when the two parties work together, it's in the best interest of the United States. And they've done it in a fashion that is easily explained and easily defended. They've based their appropriation bills on the agreement reached between the President of the United States, the Speaker of the House, and the leaders in Congress, just several weeks ago for that matter. And they've done it in a remarkable way. To think that we have had only maybe 12 dissenting votes on 12 bills is amazing. And it just a tribute to both of their efforts, and I hope that we can see much more of that occurring in the near future. We need to avoid wild cuts in spending that have been proposed by some extreme members of the House. The notion that we're going to cut medical research at this moment in our history, the idea of cutting education, public safety, public health programs, we've got to reject these extreme views. Stick to the center line in the American political scene, and that means coming together to solve problems in a responsible, bipartisan way. Here in the Senate, we're going to follow regular order, which is another thing I never thought I'd see again. I want to commend Senator Murray and the leadership with Chuck to bring us to this point. We need to work together on a bipartisan basis. I was on the floor the other day when Senate Minority Leader McConnell said, and I quote, "keep the lights on by funding government through regular order," in which the Appropriations Committee has made a true unified headway in that regard. I hope our House Republican colleagues were watching. I hope they'll come back and work with us on a bipartisan basis. That is exactly what the American people have asked for.
Senator Stabenow.
Well, thank you. Good afternoon. Welcome back, everybody. I, too, want to lend, first of all, my words of thanks to Senator Schumer, always wanting to get things done. That's what we're all about. And Senator Murray and Senator Collins for moving the appropriations process forward in regular order with strong bipartisan support. I will note, for the record, first time 2 women as that leaders of the committee. Just saying, right. So, women leading on time, on budget. So, I'm just saying. This is really good news. Yes. This is really good news, and it follows the agreement. Remember that agreement at the end of May with President Biden and the Speaker of the House shaking hands on a budget agreement on spending that we would be doing for this year? Well, that's what we're doing, is following through on the commitment that they made. And we all know then what happened. Extreme members of the House are trying to derail the agreement the Speaker of the House made with the President of the United States and trying to derail our progress. Government shutdown threatens the safety of Americans in every single area of our lives. Support for the troops and national defense, air travel, rail safety, food inspections through the USDA, basically our ability to provide Americans with the daily services that they need and deserve. Not to mention the hardship that'll be created for millions of hardworking public employees. You know, there's so much good news right now. We're rebuilding America, bringing jobs home from overseas, creating a manufacturing renaissance, and I can say that from Michigan, that it's very exciting to see what's happening on manufacturing. 187,000 jobs created in August alone. 13.5 million jobs created during President Biden's just first 2.5 years. This isn't by accident. Democrats are focused on growing the middle class of this country and by bringing down costs. A Republican government shutdown would completely undermine our country's progress right now. So thank you again to Senator Schumer, to our great leaders on the Appropriations Committee. We are committed to a bipartisan approach to governing our country. That's what the American people want, and that's what they deserve.
Thank you. Okay, questions? Go ahead, Manu.
Will you commit to holding a vote on the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff's nominee if the standoff with Tommy Tuberville persists?
The bottom line is this is a problem created by Republicans, and it's up to them to solve it. Senator McConnell, Senator Thune have said they disagree with Tuberville. It's now up to the Republican Party to get him in line. We're not going to shift the burden to Democrats when this is a Republican-caused problem.
So
Next. Go ahead.
Your concerns about the potential for a shutdown. Have you had any conversations with Speaker McCarthy, or do you intend to?
I've had a conversation with Speaker McCarthy, and we had a good conversation. We agreed a CR is the best way to go. He's going to have a rough time implementing it, but I hope he sticks to his guns. And I think he knows, I think Leader McCarthy knows, that if a shutdown happens, it'll be caused by House Republicans. It'll be bad for the country, but it'll also be very bad for them.
Leader Schumer.
Yes.
Thank you, Leader Schumer. The UK Parliament just recognized Taiwan as an independent country. Should Congress do the same, or at least the Senate do the same?
No, I think that with the present situation is where we should stay.
Leader Schumer.
Yes. Yes, there was a hand there. Yeah, way back there. I would like to call on a new person there. Hi, new person.
So I want to get your thoughts on the fact that lawmakers in both the House and also in the Senate have voiced concerns about Senator McConnell and his health. Can you offer your thoughts?
Look, I'm very glad to see McConnell back. He's doing well. We're working together well. and I always wish him the best.
Leader Schumer?
Yes.
You have this forum coming up on AI next week with these leaders. Talk about your goal in that, and secondarily here, are you any closer to getting from members any sort of legislation that you think you can move on AI in the next few months?
AI is one of the 2 or 3 most serious problems we face in the future, but it's also one of the 2 or 3 best opportunities we face in the future. So it's very, very important to both maximize the opportunities and the good that AI can do and minimize the harm, both of which are very large. Our forum is unique because this is such the insight forums that we've set up, and you can see that we have a very broad-based, balanced attendance of people who are experts, people who have AI systems in place, and critics. They're all coming together. And the idea is for all of us in the Senate to listen to their ideas and thoughts, for their facts and ideas to be the nutrient agar, and then our committees to go forward and to, move forward with legislation. We can't put our heads in the sand like ostriches. If we don't do anything, AI is going to move forward without us, and the dangers could be maximized and the opportunities could be minimized. And so this is going to be one of the most important sessions, if you will, that Congress has had. Why did we do it this way? Because it's so unique. It is broad and deep. It's going to affect every aspect of society. It is constantly changing, and it is very complicated. So I'm very, very pleased with how this has happened, and as everything else we're trying to do, or much else we're trying to do, we're doing it in a bipartisan way, and Senators Rounds and myself and Heinrich and Young have been working very hard all of August to put this forum together. We think it'll do a lot of good. Yes.
Are you concerned at all that the Republican calls for an impeachment inquiry could get in the way of the budget negotiations?
The Republican calls for impeachment are absurd, and we're going to move forward and do our job here in the Senate of funding the government and doing the many other things that I listed in the dear colleague I sent that we need to do.
Leader Schumer,
Thank you, everybody.